My son and his wife kicked me out of the house. I was standing in front of my house holding the key that no longer fit the lock, and my suitcase was lying near the garage with a note from my son. There are only 3 of us. Look for another place. After the surgery that almost took my life, I dreamed of being embraced by my family. Instead, I got a betrayal. But they will find out that I am not someone who can be thrown away. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly as I scrolled my name on the discharge papers. My hand shook, not from nerves, but from the weight of 3 weeks post-surgery, my chest still tender where they'd cracked me open. The nurse, a young woman with a braid tight as a rope, smiled and handed me my coat. "Take it easy, Mr. Carter," she said. I nodded, slipping the coat over my shoulders, the fabric heavy against my weakened frame. The sterile tang of antiseptic clung to the air, sharp in my nose as I shuffled toward the exit. Outside, Spokane's spring rain misted the pavement, slicking the budding trees. I clutched my house keys in my pocket, their jagged edges a small comfort. I was going home. The taxi idled at the curb, its wipers swiping lazily. I eased into the back seat, my hospital bag thumping against my knee. "Westview Drive," I told the driver, a guy with a gray beard and a Seahawks cap. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Family waiting for you?" he asked, pulling into traffic. I forced a smile, picturing Emma's gap-toothed grin, Ryan's firm handshake, maybe even Lauren setting an extra plate. "Yeah," I said, my voice warmer than I felt. "Can't wait to see my granddaughter." My phone sat silent in my pocket. No messages, no missed calls. I pushed the thought away. They were probably busy. The city slid by. Rain smeared windows reflecting street lights. My chest ached with each breath, a reminder of the heart surgery that had nearly ended me. I'd spent years keeping Ryan afloat, paying off his car, covering the mortgage on that house so he and Lauren could give Emma a good life. A house just like the one we passed now, with its tidy lawn and glowing porch lights, sparked the memory. Me signing the loan papers, Ryan promising to pay me back soon. I'd waved it off. Family was worth it. The taxi slowed as we reached Westview Drive. "Here you go," the driver said, taking my cash. I stepped out, the rain cool on my face, and hoisted my bag. The street was quiet, the kind of suburban hush where you hear your own footsteps. My house stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, its familiar red door a beacon. But something felt off. The windows were dark, no warm glow spilling out despite it being 9:25 p.m. I fumbled for my keys, squinting at the unlit porch, my pulse quickening. The key didn't fit. I jiggled it, twisting harder, the metal scraping uselessly in the lock. Rain tapped my shoulders, soaking through my coat as I knocked, first softly, then with a fist. "Ryan, Lauren." My voice sounded thin in the night air. No answer. I stepped back, my boots squatching on the wet doormat, and tried the key again. Nothing. Confusion coiled in my gut, tight as a spring. This had to be a mistake. I circled the house, checking the side door by the kitchen. Locked. The backsliding door wouldn't budge either, its glass cold under my palm. My breath came faster, the ache in my chest flaring. I rounded to the garage, my bag dragging behind me, and froze. There by the trash can sat my old suitcase, its brown leather sodden, zipper rusted. A yellow sticky note fluttered under a rock, ink smudged but legible. "We're just 3 now. Find somewhere else, your son." The words hit like a punch. I read them again, my hands trembling as I held the note. "Ryan, my son." I sank to my knees, the wet gravel biting through my jeans. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I fumbled for my phone and dialed Ryan's number, the screen blurring as rain streaked it. Straight to voicemail. I tried Lauren, same. "This is a mistake," I muttered, my voice cracking. "It has to be." The suitcase stared back, a relic of better days. I'd packed it for Emma's first birthday, stuffing it with gifts. A pink bicycle with streamers, her squeal of joy echoing as I pushed her down the driveway. That memory stung now, sharp as the rain. I dialed Ryan again, then Lauren. each unanswered ring fueling the panic in my chest. Finally, I left a voicemail, my words measured despite the shake in my voice. "Ryan, it's Dad. I'm outside. What's going on? Call me." Spokane's night pressed in. Dim street lights, wet grass, the faint hum of a neighbor's TV. My heart raced, the surgery scar throbbing. I stood, dragging the suitcase to the curb, and scanned the house again. Dark, silent, the note's words burned. "Your son." I gripped the phone tighter, redialing Ryan, determined to hear his voice, to understand. I stood in the rain, but no answer came. Realizing there was no point staying, I called a nearby motel on Main Street, one I'd stayed at once after Ellen's funeral. A silent taxi driver with tired eyes got me there in 20 minutes. Stepping into the cramped motel room, I dropped my suitcase on the floor and began unpacking, trying to make sense of what had happened. The call connected on the third try just as I reached the garage again, rain dripping down my collar. "Dad." Ryan's voice came through clipped. Impatient, I stopped packing, gripping the phone like a lifeline, its cold glass biting my ear. "Ryan, what the hell is this?" I said, my voice low but shaking. "I'm outside. My key doesn't work." "There's a note." "Yeah, I left it," he cut in. No trace of warmth. "We talked about this, Dad. We're just 3 now." "Me, Lauren, Emma, you need to find somewhere else." I blinked, rain blurring my vision. "Talked about this. I was in the hospital. Ryan, after everything I've done, paying for this house, your car, Emma's school." My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "You can't just kick me out. It's not like that," he snapped. But his tone was ice. "We need space. Lauren and I are planning a cruise, a fresh start. You're a lot to handle right now." "A lot to handle," I echoed, my fist clenching. "I almost died, Ryan," he sighed, the sound sharp through the phone. "Look, I got to go." "Figure it out, Dad." The line went dead, the screen dimming in my hand. I stood there, soaked, the suitcase heavy at my feet. His voice had dragged up a memory, teaching him to drive in my old Chevy. His teenage grin as he nailed a 3-point turn. "You're the best, Dad," he'd said. Now that pride was ash. A neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street, the glow catching my eye. I felt exposed, a stranger in my own life. My chest ached, not just from the surgery but from the weight of his words. A fresh start for them, not me. I dragged the suitcase toward a bus stop down the street, each step a slog through wet grass. The rain eased, leaving a misty hush. At the stop, I sank onto the bench, staring at the suitcase, its battered leather a mirror of my shock. My jaw tightened, a spark of anger flickering. "This isn't over," I muttered, my voice barely audible over the distant hum of traffic. The motel room smelled of damp carpet and stale coffee, its flickering TV casting shadows across the peeling wallpaper. I knelt by my suitcase, unpacking with slow, deliberate hands, each item a reminder of the life I'd lost. My flannel shirts, folded neatly, smelled faintly of home, of the laundry detergent Lauren used. I set them on the sagging bed, my chest tight from more than just the surgery scar. The rain tapped the window, a steady rhythm against Spokane's spring night, and I caught my reflection in the glass. Hollow eyes, gray stubble. 62 years, and here I was, starting over. I pulled out a photo of Emma, her crayon drawing of a sunflower taped to the back. Her giggle echoed in my mind from the day I'd pushed her on a swing at the park. That was before the hospital, before Ryan's note. My fingers lingered on the photo, then moved to a motel Bible on the nightstand, its worn cover sparking a memory. My wife, Ellen, had held one just like it at her funeral, her voice steady as she'd made me promise to look after Ryan. I'd kept that vow, paid his bills, covered his mortgage, all to give him the life she'd wanted for him. Now he'd thrown me out like trash, I muttered. All those years for this. My voice sounded foreign, brittle. I grabbed my phone, checking for messages. Nothing. No calls from Ryan, no texts from Lauren. My bank app showed a dwindling balance, but the mortgage payments for their house still auto-deducted from my account. That house I'd bought for them, my sacrifice, their home. I paced the room, my breath uneven, the surgery's after effects dragging at me. Each step stoked a spark of anger, faint but growing. The suitcase yielded one last item, a creased bank statement. Tucked in a side pocket, I smoothed it out, the numbers stark. My name, the mortgage, the payments I'd made for years. My heart raced, not from weakness but from a sudden clarity. I still held the strings. They thought they could erase me, but I wasn't powerless. I sank onto the bed, the paper crinkling in my hand, and dialed the bank's after-hours line. The neon sign outside buzzed, its red glow spilling through the blinds as I waited for the call to connect. The bank call sparked a flicker of resolve, but I still felt the need to see the house again, as if it might change something. The motel was only a couple of miles from Westview Drive. So I decided to walk. Hopping fresh air would clear my head. The rain had eased, and I set off through Spokane streets. The bank statement in my pocket now feeling like my only weapon. The bank's hold music crackled through my phone, a tiny loop that grated as I scribbled notes on a motel notepad. The room's stale coffee smell clung to the air, mixing with the faint tang of rain from my still damp coat. "Yes, Mr. Carter," the clerk finally said, her voice clipped but professional. "You're the primary on the mortgage for 142 Westview Drive. You can adjust payments or cancel them." "What would you like to do?" I leaned forward. The bank statement spread across the bed. "Just confirm I have full control," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She did, rattling off details I already knew but needed to hear. My signature, my money, my leverage. I thanked her and hung up, my pulse quickening. For the first time since the hospital, I felt a flicker of power. I left the motel, the rain lighter now, Spokane streets gleaming under street lights. My boots splashed through puddles as I walked toward Westview Drive, not to confront Ryan but to clear my head. The bank statement was folded in my pocket, a quiet weapon. I passed blooming lilacs, their scent sharp in the damp air, when a voice called out, "Jim Carter, is that you skulking around?" I turned to see Alice Thompson, my neighbor, standing on her porch in a fleece jacket, graying hair pulled back. Her sharp eyes softened as she waved me over. "Saw Lauren toss your stuff by the garage," she said, her tone dry but kind. "Classy move." "You okay?" I hesitated, then climbed her steps, my legs heavy from the walk. "Not exactly," I admitted, sinking into a wicker chair. Alice handed me a mug of coffee, its warmth seeping into my hands. "Ryan locked me out, left a note, said they're just 3 now." She snorted, sitting across from me. "Sounds like my kids cutting me off after their dad died." "Family, huh?" Her voice held a familiar edge. Betrayal but not defeat. I sipped the coffee, the bitterness grounding me, and told her about the mortgage, the bank call. Her mention of family stirred a memory. Ryan's wedding, me writing a check for the venue, Lauren beaming in her dress. I thought it was my gift to their future. Now it felt like a debt they'd never repay. Alice leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "You've got leverage, Jim. That mortgage, it's your move." I spent years as a school administrator dealing with budgets and legal disputes. "Picked up a few tricks," she grinned, a spark of mischief in it. "What do you say we make them sweat?" I met her gaze, the spark in me catching fire. "I'm in," I said, my voice firm. We moved to her kitchen, the table cluttered with mugs and a notepad. She sketched out ideas, her pen quick while I nodded, the weight of betrayal shifting to purpose. "Meet me tomorrow," she said, her tone conspiratorial. "We'll start simple." I left her house, the rain gone, stars peeking through clouds. My chest docked, but I walked taller, the bank statement crisp in my pocket. At Alice's table tomorrow, we'd carve out a plan. The next morning, Alice called, her voice brimming with determination. "Bank opens at 9:00, Jim." "Ready to make the first move," she said. We met at her house and she insisted on driving, joking that my nerves couldn't handle the wheel. On the way to the bank, we reviewed the plan. Cancel the mortgage payments and make Ryan and Lauren feel the consequences. Stepping into the bank's cool interior, I felt my hand tighten around the statement. The bank's glass doors hissed shut behind us, the cool air sharp with the scent of paper and polish. I handed the clerk, a young man with a crisp tie, the bank statement, my signature steady on the cancellation form. Alice stood beside me, her arms crossed, a faint smirk playing on her lips. The clerk glanced at the documents, then at me. "You're stopping payments on the mortgage for 142 Westview Drive." "Correct." "Correct," I said, my voice calm but iron. "Make sure it's done today." My hand didn't shake, though my chest twinged. A reminder of the surgery. I glanced at Alice, her nod subtle but encouraging. The clerk typed. The keyboards clacked loud in the sterile room. Outside, Spokane's rain streaked the windows, blurring the view of budding trees. I hesitated, my pen hovering over the final form. Emma's face flashed in my mind, her laugh as I'd paid for her preschool, her tiny hand in mine at the enrollment office. This would hurt her too, not just Ryan and Lauren, but they'd left me no choice. I signed the ink bold and slid the form back. Before signing, I'd called my lawyer to set up a small trust fund for Emma, ensuring she'd have something no matter what happened to the house. My heart twisted at the thought of Emma's toys in that house. But their betrayal burned deeper. They'd chosen this path, not me. Alice whispered, "Ryan's going to lose it." Her tone gleeful, and I stifled a grim smile. The clerk processed the request, handing me a confirmation slip. Crisp paper, black ink, my reclaimed agency. "You'll get a notice if the account goes into default," he said, his curiosity barely masked. I nodded, folding the slip into my pocket. Alice nudged me as we left, her voice low. "First strike, Jim." "How's it feel?" "Like I'm waking up," I said, the words surprising me. We stepped into the rain, heading to a cafe across the street. The place smelled of espresso and warm bread, its windows fogged. We settled at a corner table, Alice pulling out her notepad. "Next, we keep them guessing," she said, her pen tapping. "Maybe a letter to their lender, hint at foreclosure." I nodded, my mind racing. The mortgage cancellation would hit soon. Ryan and Lauren would get a notice. Maybe panic. I leaned back, the cafe hummed soothing, and sipped my coffee. Alice's eyes gleamed with strategy, her voice dropping. "We'll meet tomorrow. Plan the next move. You good?" "Better than good," I said, my jaw tight. My phone buzzed on the table, Lauren's name lighting up the screen. My pulse spiked, but I let it ring, the silence louder than the cafe's chatter. Alice raised an eyebrow, her smile approving as I set the phone face down. "The cafe," espresso machine hissed, its sharp scent cutting through the hum of conversation. I sat in a corner booth, my coffee cooling as I scrolled through Lauren's text, each word dripping with fury. "You canceled the mortgage. You're ruining us." My lips twitched, not quite a smile. I could picture them now, back from their cruise, standing in the house I'd paid for. The image came clear, Ryan ripping open a bank notice, his face draining of color, Lauren packing with a wine glass, her voice shrill. I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking softly, and let myself imagine their chaos. In my mind, they were in their living room, suitcases still and packed, sand from some Caribbean beach dusting the floor. The bank notice lay crumpled on the coffee table, red ink screaming, "Payment overdue." "You said he wouldn't do this," Lauren snapped, her manicured nails digging into her palm. Ryan slumped on the couch, rubbing his temples. "Oh, I didn't think he'd go this far," he muttered. "He's weak." "Recovering," Lauren cut him off, her voice rising. "Weak, he's screwing us, Ryan. We could lose the house." She grabbed her phone, dialing the bank, only to be met with a recorded message about office hours. I leaned back in the booth, the cafe rain-streaked window reflecting my faint reflection. I'd given them everything, years of mortgage payments, Emma's school fees. Even that dollhouse she loved. The memory hit hard, Emma's squeal as I set up the tiny plastic mansion. Her small hands arranging the furniture. Now I'd pulled the rug out and guilt gnawed at me. Would Emma suffer for this? The thought stung, but their betrayal burned hotter. A server approached, her apron stained with coffee. "Need a refill, hun?" she asked, her voice warm. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "I'm good, thanks." She moved on, and I returned to my phone, Lauren's text glowing accusingly. I pictured Ryan trying to call the bank next, his charm useless against bureaucracy. Lauren would blame him, her Instagram perfect life cracking. They'd thought I was disposable, a tired old man. They were wrong. My phone buzzed again, Ryan's name flashing. My heart kicked. The calf's chatter fatting. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the answer button, the weight of their panic on the other end pulling me forward. I'd sent Lauren a brief text after the bank call, saying I'd be at the Riverside Cafe if they wanted to talk. I didn't expect them to show up so fast, but the bank's notice about the mortgage cancellation must have lit a fire under them. Their fury was almost palpable when I saw the cafe. Door swing open, my phone buzzed, Ryan's name flashing again, and this time I answered, bracing myself. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, his voice tight with rage, Lauren's sharp tone cutting in from the background. They were at the house, the bank notice in hand, demanding I meet them. The bank had called them that morning, explaining I'd stopped the mortgage payments, and now they were desperate to confront me. My coffee cup hit the table with a soft clink as I straightened, my pulse steady despite the storm approaching. The air smelled of fresh pastries, but their presence soured it. Lauren's perfume sharp as she slammed her purse onto my table. "You think you can ruin us?" Lauren's voice was a hiss, her makeup smudged under her eyes. Ryan loomed behind her, his jaw tight, hands stuffed in his pockets. The calf, his chatter dipped, a few heads turning. I folded my napkin deliberate and met her glare. "You made your choice," I said, my voice low. "Even. You locked me out." "Left my stuff in the rain." Ryan leaned in, his voice a growl. "We needed space, Dad. You didn't have to torch our lives. The bank's calling about foreclosure." "Emma's home." His words hit like a jab, but I didn't flinch. "Emma's home," I echoed, my tone cold. "The one I paid for." "The one you took from me." Lauren's eyes flashed. "You're cruel," she spat, "playing the victim while we lose everything." Her voice cracked, and I remembered another argument years back when she demanded money for a new car, her tone just as sharp. I'd given in, thinking it would keep the peace. Now I saw her greed unmasked, her words a mirror of that day. I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. "You wanted to be just 3, I said, setting the cup down. "Live with it." A woman at the next table glanced over, her fork paused midair, the tension thick. Ryan's face re-ended. "You're not this guy, Dad," he said, almost pleading. "Fix this." I stood, my chair scraping softly, and looked at them. Ryan's desperation, Lauren's fury. The table between us, its surface scratched and worn, felt like a chasm. "You don't know who I am," I said, my voice steady. I walked out, their shouts fatting behind me, the rain cool on my face. My hand closed around the notepad in my pocket, Alice's number scrawled inside. I pulled it out, my fingers tracing the digits, and started dialing, my steps quickening through Spokane's wet streets. The calf confrontation left me with a mix of anger and resolve. I knew I needed Alice, her sharp mind and strategic approach to keep moving forward. Her house was nearby, a few blocks from the calf. So I walked there, the rain cooling my face, the notepad in my pocket, a reminder of our plan. Reaching her porch, I knocked, sensing this conversation would be pivotal. Alice's porch creaked under my boots, the scent of lilacs heavy in the damp air. I knocked, my notepad damp from the rain, my mind still buzzing from the calf. Ryan's plea, "You're not this guy," echoed. But I pushed it down. Lauren's venom had confirmed what I'd suspected. She was the one steering Ryan, her greed the root of this mess. Alice opened the door, her gray hair loose, her eyes sharp. "Rough day?" she asked, ushering me in. Her kitchen glowed with warm light, coffee mugs scattered on the table. I dropped into a chair, spreading my notepad. "They ambushed me at the calf." I said, my voice tight. Lauren's unhinged. I think she's been playing Ryan all along. Alice raised an eyebrow, pulling out a folder of papers, Lauren's freelance invoices, which she'd bragged about on social media, leaving copies in a shared office printer I'd heard about from another neighbor. "Look at these," she said, tapping one. "Her income's higher than she reports. If we tip off the bank, it could trigger an audit." I leaned over, scanning the numbers. One invoice sparked a memory. Lauren asking for cash to start her business. Her smile too polished. I'd handed over thousands, no questions asked. Now I saw the lie. "She's been hiding money," I said, my jaw tightening, "probably pushing Ryan to cut me out for more control." Alice grinned, her pen scratching notes. "We expose this. It's a double hit, financial and public. She's obsessed with her image." Her voice was crisp, legal savvy, like she'd fought battles like this before. I paced, my shoulders tense from the surgery's lingering ache, but my mind was clear. "What's the move?" I asked. "A tip to her clients," she said, sliding a legal book across the table. "We compile her public posts, and these invoices hint at discrepancies and let her reputation take the hit." She paused, watching me. "It'll hurt Emma, though. You okay with that?" I froze, picturing Emma's crayon drawings, her trust in me. My chest tightened, but I nodded. "They didn't care about me," I said, my voice low. "Time they learn. We worked late drafting the letter." Our voices low and focused. Alice's kitchen felt like a war room, the rain outside a steady drum. She handed me a legal form, her eyes gleaming. "Sign this. It's our next step. Keeps us clean if they push back." I took the pen, my hands steady, and signed. The ink dark and final. The engine hummed softly as I slowed my rental car. The foreclosure sign in Ryan and Lauren's yard, catching the late summer light. Months had passed since I'd stopped the mortgage payments, and the red letters of the notice of default stood stark against the overgrown lawn. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles pale, and parked across the street, hidden by a budding maple. I'd heard from Alice that the bank had sent multiple warnings over the months, but Ryan and Lauren hadn't found a way to cover the payments. The house looked tired. Curtains drawn, paint peeling at the edges. A moving truck idled in the driveway, its back half open, spilling boxes onto the pavement. Spokane's spring air carried the scent of rain cool through my cracked window as I watched my old home unravel. I'd expected satisfaction, maybe a spark of triumph, but the sight twisted something deeper. A box of Emma's toys, stuffed bears, a plastic tea set sat by the curb, and my chest tightened. I'd taught her to read on that porch, her small finger tracing words in a picture book, her giggles filling the quiet. Now those moments felt like theft, stolen by Ryan's betrayal. I pulled out my phone, checking for Alice's update, my thumb brushing the screen. Her text was brief. "Bank moved fast, they're done." A shout broke the silence. Ryan stormed out the front door, Lauren trailing him, her arms crossed tight. "This is your fault," she snapped, her voice carrying across the street. "You pushed him and now we're screwed." Ryan spun, his hands slicing the air. "Me, you wanted him gone." Lauren said he was a burden. Their words were raw, their polished life cracking open. I leaned forward, my breath steady, despite the faint ache in my surgery scar, watching them tear into each other. My phone buzzed again. "Alice calling." "It's official," she said, her voice sharp with victory. "Foreclosures in motion. How's it look?" I kept my eyes on Ryan, now kicking the box in frustration. "Like they're falling apart," I said, my tone even. "Good work." She chuckled, then hung up. I jotted a note. "Check bank status tomorrow." The pen scratched loud in the car's quiet. Guilt noted at me. Emma's toys a reminder of the cost. But their choice had set this in motion. Lauren's phone lit up, her face crumpling as she read something. Probably another client bailing. Then my own phone pinged, her name flashing. "We need to talk now, please." The desperation in her words hit hard, but I felt my jaw tighten, resolve hardening. I started the car, the engine's low rumble, steadying me, and pulled away, her text unanswered for now. The attorney's office smelled of leather and polished wood. The clocks ticked sharp as I signed the complaint against Lauren's hidden income. Alice sat beside me, handing over a stack of invoices, her gray eyes gleaming. "This will bury her," she said, her voice low, confident. The lawyer, a wiry man with glasses, nodded, sliding the papers into a folder. "We'll file today," he said. "Her clients will get wind of this. Fraud's a bad look for a designer." I exhaled, my hand steady despite the twinge in my chest, the surgery's shadow lingering. We stepped outside, the Spokane breeze cool on my face, the pavement slick from morning rain. Lauren was there, leaning against a lamp post, her blouse wrinkled, eyes frantic. "Jim, wait," she called, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She rushed toward us, her voice cracking. "Please stop this. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her words tumbled out, desperate, but I stood firm. Alice, a solid presence at my side. "You meant every word," I said, my voice cold, precise. "You and Ryan chose this. Live with it." Her pleading stirred a memory years ago, dismissing my offer to cover a medical bill, her tone sharp, entitled. I thought it was stress then. Now I saw her greed clear as day. "I'm begging you," she said, tears smearing her mascara. "My clients are dropping me. I'll lose everything." Alice snorted, stepping closer. "Should have thought of that before tossing his life in the trash," she said, her tone biting. Lauren's phone buzzed. Another email lighting up the screen. Contract terminated. Her face crumpled, her career unraveling in real time. I felt a flicker of pity, but it passed. "You made your bed," I said, turning away. The complaint's crisp paper heavy in my mind. Its official seal, a mark of her exposure. We walked toward Alice's car, the spring air sharp with possibility. I glanced back, Lauren still standing there, a shadow of her polished self. Then I froze. Ryan's car pulled up, its tires crunching on the wet street. My heart sank, but I squared my shoulders, Alice's hand brushing my arm as we braced for what came next. The scent of roasted vegetables filled my new Spokane home, a small rental with fresh paint and a view of budding dogwoods. I set the dinner table, my movements deliberate, the polished wood gleaming under the sunset's glow. A photo of Emma sat on the counter, her crayon sunflower bright against the frame. I paused, my fingers grazing it, a quiet vow forming. I'd be there for her on my terms. Alice was coming over, our friendship now a cornerstone, her sharp wit, a comfort I hadn't expected. A knock broke the quiet, not Alice's familiar rap. I opened the door to Ryan, his shoulders slumped, eyes red. "Dad," he said, his voice. I messed up. "I'm sorry." The words hung there, fragile, but I felt no rush to catch them. I stepped back, letting him in, the air heavy with spring warmth. "Say what you need to," I said, pouring wine for the table, my hand steady. He fidgeted, glancing at the floor. "We lost the house. Lauren's business is gone. I didn't see it. How she pushed me to cut you out." His voice cracked, but I kept my gaze level. "I forgive you," I said, slow, deliberate. "But we're done, Ryan. You don't get to walk back in." He flinched, the weight of it landing. "Emma," he started, but I cut him off. "I'll see her my way, not yours." Alice arrived, her grin softening the tension. "Smells like victory," she said, raising a glass later, her tone warm. We toasted, the clink loud in the quiet, our bond sealed through shared battles. The garden outside, its soil freshly turned, sparked a memory, dreaming of a quiet retirement, a life of small joys. This wasn't that dream, but it was mine. Hard won. Later, I walked to a nearby park, the legal agreement for Emma's trust fund signed and filed, ensuring her future. I spotted her on a swing, her laughter carrying Ryan watching from a bench. My heart lifted, but I stayed back, silent, promising I'd be her grandfather, not their pawn. I turned toward home, the park's green fatting behind me, my steps light, a faint smile tugging at my lips. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal steps and personal change. With Alice's help, I found a small rental home on Spokane's outskirts with a view of blooming dogwoods, a place to start over. The move was quick, a few boxes, my suitcase, memories of Emma. Settling in, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. That evening, preparing dinner, I felt a calm I hadn't known in ages, knowing Alice would soon join me.